Aloha from the East-West Center in Honolulu, and thank you to viewers around the world for tuning into today's EWC Seminars Live. I'm Susan Kreifels, the Media Program Manager at the East-West Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. Our program today, 1 year after the coup, Media in Myanmar, focuses on an issue that remains vitally important to the East-West Center, our alumni, and the world. In 2014, the East-West Center held its International Media Conference in Yangon, the first such international gathering of journalists to be held there. It was a time of great hope and excitement for journalists in the country. But today they face the same types of challenges and dangers under the current military dictatorship that they faced pre-2014. We have more than 300 journalists who are alumni of EWC media programs. Some have been able to relocate. Others are still inside the country at great risk to their personal safety. Our lineup of speakers today is outstanding. This includes 3 journalists who have devoted their lives to informing the people of Myanmar and the world, despite great dangers to them and their staffs. One is still reporting from inside the country. We will wrap up the panel with comments by a highly respected academic about the future of the country. I am so proud to introduce our impressive lineup of panelists. First, So Myun, editor-in-chief of Myanmar News, which has continued to operate since the coup. He has been working in media since 1992. He was in exile for 24 years, while the country was under an earlier military dictatorship, and then co-founded Myanmar in New Delhi in 1998. In 2012, Myanmar was the first exile media to move back inside Myanmar after the country opened up to democratic change. Today, Myanmar media includes free digital TV, a daily digital newspaper, and an English weekly. So Myun spoke at our 2014 EWC International Media Conference. Next, Cape Diamond is a freelance multimedia journalist and award-winning documentary film producer, reporting from inside the country, covering the military coup for several international news outlets, including CNN, Al Jazeera, Sky News in the UK, The Guardian, and The Washington Post. He also covered the Rohingya genocide for international media and contributed to the award-winning documentaries, Myanmar's Killing Fields and the Rohingya Exodus. Aung Za is founder and editor-in-chief of the Irrawaddy online news publication based in Chiang Mai. A former activist in the 1988 uprising, Aung Za founded the Irrawaddy in 1993 while in exile in Thailand. He returned to Myanmar in 2012 and set up an office in Yangon. His articles have appeared in New York Times, Foreign Policy, Bangkok Post, The Guardian, and other international news outlets. He also spoke at the EWC's 2004 International Media Conference in Yangon. Finally, Dr. Mimi Win Bird is an adjunct fellow on U.S.-Myanmar relations at the East-West Center and a professor at the Daniel K. Inouye Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies in Honolulu. She holds a doctorate in education from the University of Southern California and researches, publishes, and teaches in the areas of U.S.-Myanmar relations, security dynamics of Southeast Asia, and other areas. She earlier served as Deputy Economic Advisor at U.S. Pacific Command while she was in uniform, and currently serves on the board of the Keck Center for International and Strategic Studies at Claremont McKenna College. We are grateful for her valuable support of EWC media programs. I would like to take a moment to share our webinar protocols. Today's webinar is on the record, recorded on Zoom, and will be made available on YouTube for viewing and sharing. Viewers, your microphones and videos are turned off. Each panelist will speak up to 8 minutes, and the moderator will ask the first round of questions. Q&A will take place after panelists' remarks. To submit a question, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen and specify if there is a particular panelist you wish to answer. Join the conversation on Twitter using hashtag EWC Seminars Live, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EWC Seminars. Please check our website for webinar information, registration, full speaker bios, and YouTube links at www.eastwestcenter.org/EWC Seminars Live. From there, you can also access information about other diverse professional opportunities at the East-West Center. Finally, I am delighted to introduce today's moderator, a valuable alumna of EWC media programs. Annalisa Burgos is an international TV anchor and journalist based in Honolulu with 20 plus years of experience in Asia, New York City, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. Now a freelancer, she also teaches news reporting at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Before moving to Hawaii, she was anchor and managing editor for ABS-CBN News Channel in the Philippines. And prior to Manila, Annalisa was an anchor correspondent for Channel News Asia based in Singapore. Annalisa, thank you, and I hand the program over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's my honor to be part of this wonderful panel, such an interesting and very relevant topic considering what is happening in our times today. And I personally have been able to go to Yangon while I was working at Channel News Asia. I loved it, such a beautiful place, magical, I would say. And I'm so sad that I can't be able to go again. At least in the near future. I was there in 2014, and like Susan had mentioned, it seems so long ago, you know, how it felt and what the atmosphere was like democratically. It's just so different. And so that's what this discussion today is about. And I'm again honored to be your moderator today. I want to first again introduce our first panelist to share his thoughts, So Min from the Myanmar News. I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Okay, it looks like so your streaming is a little bit choppy. I wonder if the connection's a little bit difficult.
Can hear me? Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me,
Yes.
better. I would like to thank, first of all, EWC and everyone involved, particularly Susan, for having me into this discussion. I would like to start with positive note and positive direction before we go into challenges of working as a journalist in Myanmar after the coup. You know why? The military coup obviously made us face many challenges, particularly for the safety of journalists and non-journalists. Now, over time, it has provided us with opportunities to grow audiences and to diversify production as an independent media. Even after 1 year of the military coup, we have seen and we are seeing most of the independent media organizations in the country continue to do their job of reporting and informing the people inside and outside the country, even though the regime wished these media and journalists to be dead, basically. In fact, we have been able to produce and publish more news stories and grow audiences if we compare before coup and after coup. So that is very positive note. And for Myanmar, my media organization, we have been able to establish multiple bases, multiple locations for production, both inside and outside the country, to support our clandestine work, particularly inside the military regime control areas. In fact, we also have more journalists and staff working in the organization than the pre-coup. And very interestingly, whenever we seek applicants to recruit more journalists and editors, we are finding more applicants. Organization like Myanmar, despite the fact that anyone working for Myanmar can be arrested, tortured, and sentenced to minimum 2 years in jail and even up to for us. Personally, I had cancer in July in 2020, and I was diagnosed. I wanted to live a few years, and I thought I would not be living long years. But after Coup, I feel that I was reborn again as to be able to continue the work. So I feel very much energetic, and in fact, despite all the challenges. And for our organization, we produce more stories. We have more audience. Like just to give you an example, one of our main Facebook page before Coup have 15 million followers. Now we have more than 20 million followers. And this is just one example. So we have billions of audience with after the Coup in the last 1 year. So that is, I think, a great encouragement for all of us working as a journalist and in a very difficult situation. In terms of difficulties and challenges, of course, the safety is the most challenging one for all of us to work, to do our work. We have in the country about 115 journalists so far have been arrested in the last 1 year, and 40 are still in jail, and 3 journalists were killed by the military regime. For Myanmar, my own organization, both journalists and non-journalists work under constant fear and stress of being arrested by the authorities. Even that is true, even true for many of us who have been able to relocate to the areas outside the control of the military regime. Out of 140, we have currently still 80 are in the military regime control area, and they face apart from safety and security issues, like the other challenges are logistics, the money transfer to pay to get the salaries, because the regime cut the internet and regime freeze the bank accounts. Regime monitor the mobile phones, and another challenge is in terms of internet touch. The military regime uses internet as a tool of suppression, in particularly in the areas when they are targeting the local population. So the internet access is also one of the very big challenges for us to continue our work. Another one is, as a journalist, we find very difficult in verifying news. We want to get the different sources, but it is very difficult for us because the regime doesn't allow us for the access to information and news. So these are some of the challenges, and for the looking forward, we have a strategy to work with alliances and partners struggling for democracy and human rights, and also for the genuine federal union. So we are now the platform for the citizen journalists and ethnic voices, resistant forces, so that their voices and their views are heard and seen and listened to. So that is what I would like to end my short presentation, and I would be very happy to answer whatever the question you may have. Thank you again.
Thank you. So let's turn now to Cape Diamond to talk about his work within the country.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So hi everyone, and my name is Cape Diamond, and I'm very grateful to be here. And thank you so much EWC for having us and other individuals who sent us the invitation to join this webinars. So first of all, I would like to just present a very short note of how the journalists remain in the countries are operating under the military regime. So as Go Somyet mentioned that these especially the local journalists remain in the countries are facing so many difficulties, and they are in very huge risks, in terms of their professionalism. They are even struggling to carry their camera out in the street, and even not only the journalists but also the civilian and the people are facing those challenges. They cannot really bring their daily use phone out in the field, because if you are passing the checkpoint, the regime checkpoint, they will suddenly check your mobile phones, your car, they will search you, that kind of stuff, and also now the journalists are facing the some threat on the social media, especially the critical local media and their journalists, because the military, the regime have set up their network on the social media, on the internet, to monitor those media organization and the people, not to continue their work. So as Gosomyi mentioned that people, the local journalists are still continuing their work. So in this case, we can talk about two types of journalists in the country. So the one is like the journalists who are contributing to the international media, like us. Another one is the ones who are working for the local media outlet. So the second ones are the ones the military is mainly targeting to crack down. So if you say, oh, I'm a journalist working for Myanmar, or if you say I'm a journalist working for the Irrawaddy or Kitde, whatever, it is likely you're going to be on their list, or you're going to be arrested right away, because the military regime has repeatedly mentioned these local media outlets, as they're traitors, or the one destroying the countries. So this is kind of a huge threat to the local journalists who are contributing to the local media outlet. But I always praise to those, including my colleagues, my friends, who are still working out of their their energies, to keep informing the people. So sometimes we are having some conversation with friends, how we should continue our work despite the huge risks. Yeah, they say, yeah, whatever, we have to keep going. We have to keep continuing our work, because otherwise, people won't know what is happening, here. We should make it, we should make the news on the track. So I agree that that's why this is one of the main reasons I'm still inside the country, and also the regime is of course the targeting the media industry, because their main purpose is to flood people, like to flood with their propagandas, like on the people, like social media, or whatever people see on the TV screens. So after, like right before the 2020 general election in Burma, we have noticed and we have seen some new media organization emerge. So And right after the 2020 election, we have seen so many new media organizations emerge. So those media organizations, like most of them are the military back, or the how to say, like the pro-military political party back media. So they're like spreading the propagandas of the regime, and they are carrying, they became the mouthpiece of the military regimes. So the military regime is mostly no longer on the their channels are mostly no longer on the main social media, like Facebook, Twitter, but still they have those proxy media, so on the social media. So these proxy media are carrying the propaganda of the regime, and they are trying to influence the people. But at the same time, the role of the journalism in Myanmar is, how to say, like more visible to the public. So before the coup, the media industry was not that praised. Frankly saying, during the Rohingya crisis, people were blaming the independent media, the journalists, for reporting on such issues like the Rohingya crisis, like the genocide. People thought that, oh, the journalists are not good, they're the traders, they got a lot of money from the outside. So, but then during the coup, they came to realize that okay, the journalists are the one who are reporting, what is happening, who are seeking for the truth. So that's the kind of stuff. So for me personally, I'm very, how to say, pleased to receive, whether like I receive the praise from the people, or I am labeled as a trader of the trader, because I'm just working my work. I'm just doing my work. My professionalism is to report the truth. Despite who is committed the crime or whatever. So I keep saying that we never have a press freedom in Burma. To be honest, even under the end of the government time, or under this time, previously, even like people will say, oh yeah, you had some press freedom in Burma, before the coup. Yes, we had, but it was not a real one for me. That's what I believe. Because even during the end of the government time, from 2015-16 to 2020-21, we were not free to report on such matter, not only on the the crime that military committed, but also some of the issue that we were not like, okay, we were able to report, but we did not really have safety. Like many journalists were sent behind the bars by the previous government, because they were very critical to the government, which was led by the Aung San Suu Kyi. And even they were using the very notorious law like 6060, defamation against the journalists. So that's why I said, yeah, we were struggling throughout the time. So nothing has changed, but of course getting worse and worse for the journalists and the media industry. And I would like to conclude that I have huge respect to my colleagues and my friend, especially the one who are contributing to the local media outlet. So these are the real heroes, the brave one. So yeah, we should keep supporting them. There are many freelance journalists out there, and also citizen journalists. There's many places we are not able to go because of the restriction, because of the fighting. But these citizen journalists are the one who are helping us gathering information on the ground. So we cannot really forget about them as well. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Cape, for that very interesting insight you have, international versus the domestic journalists there. Okay, let's turn now to Angjo with Irrawaddy.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you hear me okay. My head is spinning. I woke up early today. So thank you for having me. I want to thank my colleagues and Susan, everyone at the East West Center having me in the past and now, and hopefully in person we will meet one day when the travel is allowed. So let me pick up what Kusoni said and Kate Diamond, and a lot of positive things happen since the coup in the media landscape has changed. Media landscape has changed a lot. And also there are a lot of challenges. Also, anyway, we are always being traitors, and from both sides, hate us, both government and military, and we are now handed, and we are being selectively targeted. And I couldn't reveal a lot in this seminar, sorry, but we have a lot of things going on with our staff inside the country since last month, and we had to make a lot of safe relocations and safe journey to the border areas. And if you look back at what happened last year and this year, after you've seen a lot of clandestine operations, I look at myself and ourselves and my team saying, gosh, we are doing one of the most exciting, interesting jobs on the border areas. We've never seen it like such a very exciting things that we couldn't share with you now. I couldn't share with you now because a lot of my stuff will be in danger if I say something. But to say that some of our staff be interrogated, arrested, detained, being tortured, they've been looking after me and our staff, our editorial staff, as well as accountant and many transactions inside the country. So I'm not going to talk a lot about media landscape now, but I'm going to start to take you back to the 2021, what happened since the coup. Just first, I'm going to share the good news that the coup is not successful. It's failed. So this is a very important thing that we all have to keep in mind, that the military coup is not succeeded yet. And because Senior General Mayon clearly did not anticipate that his power grab will face such a strong, determined resistance. And when he staged a coup a year ago, the coup so far faced domestic and international boycott and sanctions, as well as I would call it the national uprisings and the various forms of resistance, including, surprisingly, armed resistance across the country. Economies free fall. And we had a problem with the COVID-19 since the time people have lost jobs. But because of the coup, there's a double blow to the millions of Burmese people who are losing their jobs. The national currency, the kyat, has lost its values. And also recently we see that a lot of people living in urban cities slip into poverty and food insecurities. I think the country seems to be diving into the hell since the military coup. And there we also have a power cuts. And then this year, since late February, we started seeing a blackout taking place across the country. And the Myanmar government and Myanmar military regime issued a notice saying that there will be 24-hour blackouts will take place across the country, as well as a health issue. The health system is in disarray. Many physicians have joined the boycott and against the coup. And there was a hospital, there was a shortage of nurses and physicians, as well as the schools, the education system was disrupted. And there are very few teachers in the classroom, and very few students in attendance. And since the coup happened, and there are a lot of opposition groups in March, and also they have aligned with the ethnic organizations. What is the most surprising news, if you ask me, after the coup is that the PDF, the People Defense Forces, I think this is a most interesting element after the coup. We have seen it, and they disjointed resistant groups across the country. Some are based in the Burman areas, some are based in ethnic insurgents control area. They take up the arms against the military. And what is an interesting thing is the EAO forces are also proactively supporting those PDF and resistant forces and their gathering pace are putting greater pressure on the military. So I think I would see that our country, Myanmar, is going to be likely to see the more and more instability in the foreseeable future. And also those resistant groups are also getting more and more sophisticated and targeting regime forces increasingly cooperating each other. And also we see a lot of soldiers and officers leaving the military and the battalions and police officers. There are at least between 5,000 to 7,000 police officers and army soldiers and officer leaving the military or police forces and joining the opposition forces. Because of the conflict, I think there's a conflict across the country. Across the country, there are hundreds of thousands of people, ethnic minorities, fled their homes since the military coup. According to the UN, I think over 800,000 people so far internally displaced in our country. As the violence escalates, there are numbers of displaced people, and it's likely to raise, and we're going to face very devastating humanitarian consequences. This is a story that we are covering in our country. But one thing I want to mention that since the military coup, there are a lot of educated Burmese citizens, IT technicians, celebrities, editors, journalists, professors. Those with the professional Burmese or even the mid-level tycoons and businessmen have left the country. This is a time I think the neighboring countries, including Thailand or India or Western governments, started to look at how to realize the potentials. They're not just fleeing to the cross-border, they are coming to the other countries with the different ways of different means like illegal or legal. They're leaving the countries, which is quite interesting to see. Like not like 88, this is a lot of people with a lot of knowledge and profession have come to the left the country. Lastly, I want to talk about the media landscape. I have only 3 or 4 minutes left. I think the regime is killing the press freedom, for sure. And journalists and media workers have suffered intensely throughout the first year of Myanmar military coup. They've been actively hunted and silenced for doing their jobs. The shutdown of independent media, internet restrictions, and strict censorship means the press freedom in Burma is almost non-existent. The effect of the military repression is seen clearly as the rising tide of journalists who are fleeing for their lives to face uncertain future across the country's border with Thailand and India. There are a lot of Burmese journalists or reporters have left and now living along the border. There are about 60 to 70, I think, Burmese reporters living in along the border areas. Even a lot of, I think, 2 or 3 dozen Burmese reporters have left and joined my team in Thailand. So what I think is, I want to put into 3 or 4 categories. There are, since the coup, there are, I think, 4 or 5 types of media still continue to remain active, operate on Burma issues, but they are not necessarily based in Burma. One group is Asian media groups like EWC or Myanmar or Myanmar Now. I think they will continue to operate outside of Burma. And also, I think a lot of Burmese reporters have left to Thailand and Thailand border and India. I see they started setting up their own small publication online and social media. They are also providing a lot of information inside and outside of Burma. And number 2 is there are a lot of pro-military websites and social media pages. They pop up after the coup. They are being provided funding and sponsored by the Burmese military. The third group is media groups remain inside the country. They are editorial stand is much more leaning towards a military junta. The fourth group is media groups affiliated with the NUG government and NLD and other opposition groups like Public Voice Television, the People's Sprint or Ludun News, all such a type of media groups. They are strongly associated with the NUG and other types of opposition. And then what is interesting is since the military coup, we also see that some of the ethnic media groups very much focus on the federalism and ethnic issue, such as a Federal Journal. I think they have produced a very good information analysis. And also I saw that there are ethnic media groups with the better performance since the military coup. You can list down a lot of them. Lastly, I'm going to finish up very soon, that there are a lot of several social media groups established in Sagaing region and Magui and Chin states and Pian state, where there are a lot of intense fighting taking place almost daily. Those social media groups are used by the PDF and other humanitarian groups and NGOs. What they share is interesting, which is about human rights violation, the military atrocities, the war crimes, as well as the truth movement. So you can look at them, and you can look at their websites or their social media to see where the troops are stationed, where the troops are moving, which is quite interesting. Lastly, Radio Free Asia Burmese Service and Voice of America Burmese Service, BBC Burmese Service still remain inside the country, which is very interesting because if you look at the contents and editorial stance of the three foreign radio stations, RFA seems to remain very critical. VOA seems to be very much leaning towards the military junta, which need to be investigated. BBC Burmese Service seems to be a bit more neutral and still remain professional. So once there's one panelist mentioned the proxy media, I wonder how the regime is using, since regime is no longer use Facebook and social media actively, they are using their proxy media. I suspect even Voice of America, which is funded by the US Congress. The US government is very actively promoting democracy and human rights in Burma, but still, putting a sanction on the regime and cronies. But VOA, Voice of America stand out seems to be supporting the regime, towing the regime line, which is also quite interesting for us to investigate. Lastly, Burmese people definitely are looking for more and more quality information and news. That's why we have very much a large increased readership for our publication. I think that's all I want to share with you. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Angzo. Now we'll move on to our next speaker, Mimi Win Bird.
Aloha, everybody. I didn't mind the other three taking more of my time. Really, I'm just so thrilled to hear them talk. And like, I think Cave said, they are the hero because in this whole fight, everybody has been looking at Ukraine and talking about how Ukraine was the first war utilizing the media and social media. And this actually Myanmar has been doing that for a whole year, and it was due to these journalists. They did it at all cost. And with their innovativeness and their tenaciousness has been reporting, the brutality of the Myanmar military regime. So my hat off to them. So if they need more time, they can take some of mine, so I don't mind that. So one thing, like I said, in this fight, in this crisis in Myanmar, the communication, for the people side, communication is the #1 primary strategy. And as you can see in Ukraine, the way Zelensky has used both the traditional media and social media, right, to counter the brutal forces, right, and somebody that is bigger than they are, bigger enemy. So when you start talking about communication, media is one of the a critical platform, critical mechanism that they get their messages out. Like Guangzhou was saying, a lot of these Gosomian too, a lot of these brave journalists are giving real information to the public so that they know, and to the international community as well. So from an academic perspective, when we looked at all the revolution that are successful, it has three key elements in it. The first one is people support. People support for the resistance movement, overwhelming support, right? And then second one is international pressure. And then the third is a defection of military and defection of elite to the resistance side. And all of those three require communication from the resistance forces to the people, communication to the international community, communication to inside the military, so that the military personnel understand what the military is doing to counter all the propaganda, that military leadership, SAC leadership, the junta is feeding the people, the international community, its own people. So that's why the media for the military is very, very dangerous. It's threat. That's why they're focusing on all the media, all the journalists to capture and torture and arrest them. So to the military, it's probably more dangerous. The media is more dangerous to them than any weapon that they have, right? So that's why it's communication and media is critical in this fight, and we also see that in Ukraine as well. So like Guangzhou said, the military side is not doing too well at this moment, right? Because we have seen, because of all the information, that the people are getting the right information at the right time, they understand what the military is doing. So their support for the resistance movement is huge. And every time the military carpet bomb, the villages and burn people alive, those images come out. It's further support their commitment to this resistance. They know that they cannot have that regime. And then together with those images, the external, the international community was able to see what's happening inside with the help, and many times also with the help of the Myanmar diaspora, overseas diaspora. In this particular struggle is really, really unusual that I would say 90% of the diaspora all mobilized in providing support, technical support, as well as the financial support to the resistance. And they also providing, like, anytime the military try to do tracking and online and stuff, there's an IT professional that are outside are sending like SOP, standard operating procedure, how to get around it, that type of stuff. And then of course the money raising. And then and we have seen an unprecedented level of military defection. So between the military defection and the killed in action, the military is not doing well. So my latest interview with some of the lieutenant colonel that just came out, that just defected to the people's side, they said that a battalion is normally 800 people at full strength, right? 800 soldiers. They're now to 150, around 150. And out of that 150, about 50% are combat ready, combat effective. So you're down to 75 people, right? And then he said that on top of that, about 10 to 20% of people are deserting. Not defection, deserting without registering anyway. They're just walking away. They're just walking away and nobody knows. They just disappear into the population. So, and then about 70% of the people don't have the will to fight. So that's why you're seeing on the battlefield, when you have that level of morale, that low level of morale, you can't win wars. So that's why every time they have clashes with the EAOs and the PDFs, they have a lot of kill rate. A lot of, like yesterday I was reading 61 people in 1 week. The week before 89 people. All that stuff is eroding away at the military's capability. So like I agree with Guangzhou earlier, the coup has not been successful. Who has not been successful. But on the people, for the future, the people side, they need to increase their cooperation. They have cooperated a lot, but they need to increase it. They need to upgrade their cooperation. And then and then international community can do a lot of, really tangible support to the people by providing, because I said communication, right? Some type of an alternative way to communicate, right? Because the military is cutting that, interrupting the telephone system and the internet system, right? So if we can provide like something like they have been asking for Elon Musk to provide alternative, right? That goes a long way. And then all the way to counter misinformation. So if they can help out, that is a really will be very helpful. Another thing is education. We really need to, the international community can help with the education, because education system has been disrupted. So there is some way to deliver online, but as soon as you say online, you need that telecommunication infrastructure. So back to communication infrastructure again, right? And then of course the humanitarian support. And again, humanitarian support still needs that telecommunication infrastructure to deliver, and also to keep people safe, making sure they get this early warning, before they get attacked. So that type of stuff. So back to, again, all communication. Communication is the key strategy, I would say, in this fight. So I think my time is up. So that's it.
Thank you, Mimi, for that insight as well. Now we are going to move into our Q&A portion. I appreciate everyone's insight and their presentations. I just wanted to start the question round with something that I've been talking to other journalists about this topic, about Myanmar and the coverage there, especially going back to 2016 and 2017. As an international journalist, I know you guys touched on the difference between international coverage versus coverage within the country itself for the domestic audience. As an international journalist, a lot of coverage was focused on the Rohingya and the now the UN and the US calling it essentially a genocide, crimes against humanity. We spent a lot of time, when I say we, international news, covering that and talking about that. But as you all mentioned, the domestic journalists, the coverage being there, you were called traitors, because you have to do that fine line of covering for your people and knowing that nuance of the difference in seeing that particular group and using rhetoric that may have been considered by Western media as pro-government or pro-military. So these are discussions that I had with other international journalists when we cover, issues out of that country. And we don't know the country as well as obviously all of you who are there and are in the thick of it, risking your lives and covering it. So I just wanted to pose this question to all of you. How have you been able to really balance that, and then handle maybe some criticism? I know specifically maybe Angzo, maybe some Western human rights advocates called you not so critical of what was happening in the country at the time of, those horrible acts against the Rohingya, maybe using some of the same rhetoric that the government was using, the racist rhetoric. Maybe you guys could just talk about that balance that you play as a journalist there who's from there. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, let me just start. I think as nuances, I think local journalists, they have to strike the balance, as well as they have to look over their shoulders. Because if you see the 2016 and 17, there are 2 writer journalists being arrested and they be detained. There were little intervention from the elected civilian government led by Aung San Suu Kyi. It has been delayed. And when they were released from the prison, it was too late. So the local journalists, I think, did a good job, but also they be accused from both sides, both military and the government, as well as from the people, that you covering this, you are unfair. And if you look back the 2017 and 2018 coverage, 2018 and 2019 is the worst year, I would say. And I would say the irony is 2021 and 2022 is maybe better in terms of our work, in terms of our profession, in terms of our coverage, and in terms of the audience engagement is much, much better because the audience also realized that, readership also realized that there's information blacked out. There could be a lot of misinformation. Their information has been diluted. And that's the reason that I think people come back to or looking for much more balanced, much more independent, or much more critical media, such as Myanmar or Myanmar Now, or they doing a fantastic work like ARWD, they will come back to us, I think. So I think that's the thing. But that's one thing I want to answer. I don't want to provoke, but it's that human rights. But human rights is, I mean, I don't think you're talking about human rights activists or former political prisoner who became a human rights activist or who are already born human rights activists inside the country. But you're not talking about maybe human rights industry. But human rights, the one working in the human rights industry and the one who are genuinely believe in the human rights are a little bit different, I think.
Hello, Lisa, can I add?
Please.
Of course, we have been branded as anti-national all throughout. I mean, this is not the first time, and in the last 30 years of more than 30 years of work, we have been branded as anti-national inside the country whenever we report and such a situation, which is our daily work for us. We don't mind being branded. I used to say in the newsroom with my colleagues that we don't need love, or we don't need praise, or we don't mind hate, but we do our job. And if I want to be loved, I would sell ice cream. I mean, sort of a joke. I would say I tell in the newsroom. So basically, we do our work, and that is our profession. Of course, we also work around how we can work effectively. For example, one way of working is working with partners, working with networks. If I get a report, I will share this report with a partner or with another independent media organization, so that that organization also can report as we report. So not only, of course, being a journalist and media outlet, we want breaking news scoop all the time, but we also share some of the news with others, so that we are able to report from not only by one or two media outlets, but by many other media outlets. So that sort of working around. And another one is, I remember that at one point we have been broadcasting, for example, in our TV channel, we were broadcasting BBC live from London. Of course, the Rohingya coverage is very prominent by the BBC Burmese service. And at one point, I remember even during the NLD regime, there was a complaint why Myanmar is broadcasting BBC Burmese using the word Rohingya. So what we submitted, we had to make a sort of a round is, okay, we are not going to subdue the pressure of not using the word Rohingya or Rohingya coverage, but we would say that some in the country or the military regime or the government doesn't recognize the word Rohingya. So some kind of disclaimer that we have to use, which we don't like it, but we have to use some of these work means to work around. But in my opinion, whatever it is, we have to report. That is our job, and I think we have been able to do so far with all these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Kate?
Yeah, I will just like to add a few lines, follow up, the previous panelists, Guangzhou and Osonia. So, well, for me is personally, okay, I don't really like mind, hatred or whatever, I was very happy to receive them, as long as like they finally came to know what was it like, what was the truth. But I keep telling my friends, and my families, and my colleagues that okay, I never wanted to be a mouthpiece of any government or any like authorities. I don't really want to be mouthpiece of them. So I said, yeah, if I want to be like only reporting what they say, okay, I may go and work at the Global New Life of Myanmar, or I may go and work with the MRTV, which is which are the state media. So yeah, since we are the independent journalists, we do not take whatever like the authorities or the government say. Yeah, we have to do our own work. We have to do our homework. We have to find the truth. Whatever the people say, yeah, we will bring the fact. We will bring the information for them. And that's why I say, yeah, we were traders, but now we're being praised, whatever. But including me and other the journalists, we are continuing our work despite huge risks. Thank you so much.
What about you, Mimi? Did you have any thoughts on how the international journalists versus the challenges of the domestic journalists there, who have an obvious connection to the place?
Yeah, I'm not from the media, so that I don't know. That is, I can't comment too much on it, other than it'd be just an amateur commenting. So I think that what those guys are saying is much better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's interesting because we have a parallel with what happens in the Philippines too. There's a lot of human rights people that are looking in, but then when you're a journalist there, it's a different story. It's more nuanced, as we've been saying. Okay, so let's begin so thank you for addressing that for us journalists that are looking at the country. And let's take some audience questions. I know that we have some ready for you. Let's start with, actually, Mimi, let's ask you this first one then, since you didn't answer this other one. What's your thoughts about the coverage of Ukraine right now, and compared to what we're seeing with Myanmar coverage? And do you think that the outcome of the Ukrainian war will actually have an impact on what's happening on Myanmar?
Well, I think it's already having some impact already. One, now Russia is too preoccupied with its own problem in Ukraine, that they were the major supplier of arms to the Myanmar military. Right, and they've been supplying training and ammunition. So really, if you are comparing the two, Russian bombs and bullets are also killing Burmese Myanmar people on the ground as well. Not only in Ukraine, the people being killed in Myanmar are also from the Russian bullets and bombs, but. Because of the Russia in the going future, I just think that I think Bertel Lindner also wrote about that, how, it would, and I agree with Bertel on that because Russia will be a little bit preoccupied, it will have a little bit problem supporting Myanmar. Second is that the Myanmar resistance forces are looking at Ukraine and learning a lot of new stuff from them, and they're trying to utilize that. Whenever you like President Zelensky use of the information, the media operation, they are learning quickly from that. So that's two. And the third one is that I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Is it coming back?
Yeah, the third one is that the Ukraine is Myanmar resistance forces are able to connect Ukraine to them, because Ukraine is the front line for democracy in European theater, while the Myanmar is the front line for democracy in Indo-Pacific theater, right? So that's how they're able to connect to it, and so I think that those will have definitely an impact on Myanmar. Ukraine definitely is having impact and will have impact on Myanmar.
Well, hopefully there's more coverage. Definitely there's a disparity in how much coverage we're giving, obviously, to Ukraine versus Myanmar. So hopefully there's a little bit more for international audiences to see. So let's direct this question to Seoul. Can you say something about the media licensing in Myanmar? Like, this particular person wrote that they had heard that media licenses for Frontier Myanmar have been revoked by the junta. And then does that actually mean that journalism is illegal over there?
Yes. We have a system if you want to a media outlet, you have to register, and the registrations are done by the Ministry of Information. So now by the military regime. So, but immediately after the coup, soon after the coup, the military regime revoked media licenses of many independent media houses, starting with 5 media houses. That includes Mizima, and many others follow. So basically, it is a way of killing the media houses, because since you don't have a legal entity, you cannot function or you cannot work in the country. That is what the military regime wanted and wished to. And then they started cracking down and arresting the individual who are working for the media outlets. So, but it is not only the danger for those who are working in the or under the media outlets that whose media licenses are revoked. Even though your media licenses are not revoked, you still have quote unquote media licenses in the country. You will be targeted if you are reporting truth or if you are reporting independently. So there is not much difference having licenses or not nowadays. If you are a journalist, you definitely face, if you are an independent journalist, you definitely face the threat of arrest or torture or even killing. So that is where, but despite all this, the people rely on these media outlets and independent media outlets for the news and information, for the update news, because they don't trust the military regime control propaganda media outlets.
Okay. And then this one for Ang, given, during your presentation, you mentioned how you had to relocate, and your employees also had to take precautions considering the crackdown on local journalists. So how are they sustaining themselves so that they can continually do their job and inform the world of what's going on?
To me?
Yes, this is for you.
All right. Well, I think the strategy is one foot in, one foot out. We've been doing this pretty good. This is my second life, our second life in exile. The first life in exile was from 93 to 2000. After we started going back to slowly, gradually opening almost a full operation inside the country. But still, we were very cautious and careful because we didn't trust the so-called political transition. So we kept the small operation outside the country. So which means the system was alive. Because of that, because of the military coup, then when we had to reactivate the system, it was working. So we have to absorb the fleeing people, reporters, journalists, who are having a high risk of being chased by the military regime. And they had to flee finally after they were hiding and moving from one place to another. One thing is, as Mimi Wimberg mentioned, there's a lot of foreign support came from diasporas, and we were able to raise a fund, which I want to share the light joke. When we arrived to the border in 1980, there was nothing. There was nothing. No food, nothing, no shelter when we arrived at the border. We were struggling. We were walking in the jungle for 3 or 4 weeks, and there was no cell phone. There's nothing. But when people today arrive to the border, the first thing they ask is, where's Wi-Fi? This is the first thing they ask, where's Wi-Fi? I just, wow, like I'm envy because of, they have almost everything. So, and then because of the support from the Burmese community abroad, it's huge. We were able to raise the certain amount of money to support those inside the country, and to bring the people to the safe location where they can work, continue to work. One thing I want to mention is, in spite of arrests and intimidations and raiding our offices inside the country, our reporters do not fail or never fail to report every day. Every day. If you look back both Burmese sites and the English site, no one, we don't fail. It's 24/7. We work. There were no rest, no holidays, nothing. We were working like almost over 1 year, then no rest. And this team inside, team on the border, team outside, all working tirelessly to report to you, to feed you information what's going on in our country. So doing a fantastic work, but there are a lot of high risk. State facing a lot of high risk, as well as a lot of trauma. A lot of people and the families, not like in 88. 88, when I left the country, as student activist at the time, was when my mom was taken to the interrogation center for 1 day and she was released later. But this time, family members arrested, threatened, and intimidated. The house properties, they've been impounded, office cars being impounded, and it's ferocious. I mean, like the way that they have done to their families. So you can see that the psychological trauma and they have suffered from. Even my stuff, a lot of them, I couldn't talk now because openly, but a lot of things we have to take care of it. But also it's very much self-rewarding for us looking back for last 30 years, how we built the institution. And we are not resting or retiring, but we are now giving back to them, to the people inside them, stuff inside them. That was very rewarding for us to see that how much we can help, to the people, the team. So that's something. It's stressful, but that is something really rewarding for us, I think I would say.
Yeah, it's so scary what that they're going through. I was reading an article of children being held for ransom, to get the people that are opposing the government out of their hiding spots. I mean, that is so scary. Is that affecting journalists as well? Are they taking the children and the relatives of journalists?
I think this is something that the so-called whatever international community or Western donors, Western governments, who in the past would like to appease the reformists and the military, they look like a human in 2012 and 2030 onward, but now they look like animals. So this is something that we have to look at. We have to be careful that those are, apologists and the donors and some Western governments who like to engage, who are proposing the dialogue and all kinds of things, and they really should be very careful of this time, because they've been cheated. I mean, they've been double crossed from the military and so-called reformists, and So I think this time we got to be really careful, not fall into the same trap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I say really
Yes.
Follow up on what Guangzhou said? The military has a historical behavior, right? Historically been using these dialogue to replenish and rest their forces. It's not about prelude to true genuine reform. They just use it as the stalling tactic. So I think that the dialogue should come with some type of effective enforcement of their promises, because they have so many broken promises, and they just use the military to brutalize place when, so as long as, so two things has to happen. One is like either have like some type of an enforcement mechanism to, make them stay to their promises. And then second, if we can't have that, then the second one is to wound them to a point that they can never use the military again to, attack the people. So if you don't have those, having dialogue and dialogue or negotiation are kind of premature, right? Because we know if they have the history of that, and they would just use that calm, this as the stall tactics to replenish themselves.
All right, let's turn to this question for Cape now. So during your presentation, Cape, you mentioned, the difficulty of verifying information. Obviously, lots of misinformation out there, part of the propaganda agenda. How have journalists in Myanmar actually gone about verifying information? Do you use citizen journalists? What are some of the methods?
Oh, yes. In this case, the role of the citizen journalists are very, very important. We are frankly saying, some of our work, we are mainly relying on them. So yeah, we have the internet shut down and mobile signal cut off. So we cannot really communicate with people. So we cannot really send the photos out and videos. So we need to have a help, of citizen journalists. Let's say, so we want to get the news, from one particular place. They have to that particular place is in the internet shutdown area, so they have to travel to another place, to communicate with us, such kind of stuff. Since we are unable to, or we are not allowed to travel to those places, And for me, I take the verification process seriously, For me personally, whatever NUG or the military posted something, I don't really believe, easily. I double check. Sometimes, we are seeing, some sort of motivational information, on the social media. They say, yeah, the more than 30 the regime troops, kill in IED attack, or in the field, whatever, But for us, as the professional journalists, we take this serious. We have to make the verification process. We have to contact our local sources, ground sources, citizen journalists, whether it is true, and then of course we publish the information to the people, So yeah, as I said, we have a lot of difficulties. And another thing is that okay, there's a law, in Burma, unlawful association law, which means that we are technically unable to, or not allowed to, contact the armed organization or PDF member, even we cannot really use our name to contact, the NUG, whatever, because these organizations are the ones, labeled by the junta as the terrorist organization, So still, we are still inside the country. So the journalists, the local journalists, are very, careful with it. So such kind of stuff are making us, hard our life. But still, people, the journalists are continuing their work. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Cape, for that. Okay, let's turn this one to So. NUG is currently compiling footage, evidence of human rights abuses by the Myanmar army. How big of a role are local media outlets and journalists playing in that effort? And do you have an idea about how much of that evidence actually come from journalists?
Yes, my understanding is that NUG, National Unity Government, is also collecting or is also gathering the information, very specific information of these abuses committed by the military regime through the independent media outlets reportings, because the independent media outlets are very much up-to-date reporting about what is happening on the ground, either the banning of the entire villages by the military regime in different places, or a particular arrest and killing in a specific area in the downtown. So my understanding is that NET is getting and gathering this information. On the other hand, the independent media outlets like Mizima and Iyawati and DVB and many others are also reporting those findings and collection of and reports of these either by the NUT or any other international or national organization through their media outlets. So it is both ways, two ways of working. One is providing and gathering, and another one is also broadcasting and publishing and reporting back to the people. So I think there is a kind of ongoing collection and recording of these abuses very specifically.
All right, thank you. This question next for Ang Do. You mentioned earlier that the military regime could not successfully control or rule the country, and then you gave some examples about education, health sectors, but what about the economic sector, especially financial institutions? Which countries are still actually operating or collaborating with the military regime, and do you think that they can reinstall law and order?
Right. Well, I think if you look at the banking sector in Burma, it has still lost the confidence from the people. They are having a lot of problems because of the incoming sanctions. So I think if you look at the financial institution, the regime is trying to control and sustain as much as they can with whatever limited resources they have. But what my thinking is, the economic crimes committed by the cronies, that is one thing that we are, ELD is trying to focus since the military coup, because there's a huge connection between those cronies, very rich cronies, who will come with a private jet to your country and having a meal from East Coast and the West Coast and flying the plane back to the East Coast because they want to have a particular restaurant from Korea, whatever kimchi, whatever. That kind of people, they can spend a huge amount of money. And these people are deep pocket. These people and the military regime are closely connected. And they are involved in jade mining and drug smuggling, arms smuggling, involved all kinds of illicit and illegal trade. This is something that we've been focusing and publishing those particular individuals who have a very close tie and who prop up the regime, who are happy and open champagne after they heard the news of military, after they heard the news of confirmation the military staged a coup. These are the people that I think the Burmese people are doing and naming and shaming in the social media, as well as putting the pressure on the US government, other entities, as well as the governments in ASEAN and also EU, to put the pressure to single out those cronies to have put them in the sanctions, more tighter economic sanctions to hit them hard. Because I think now they hot and you got to strike it. That's, if you come with the sanctions, economic sanction, later stage, the regime will feel stronger and they are more stable. And they feel like they can control the country, like in 96 and 97. But this time, right after the coup, what the people are saying now is, even we have to suffer, we will suffer it, but we need a more action from the governments and a responsible financial institution outside to cut the oxygen pipeline of those people and pushing those foreign companies to leave, like Telenor or other Total Energies, or to leave and not to, it's very sad to see that we are asking the foreign companies to leave. We need more investment, in contrary. But this is a time that Burmese people, not me, are asking that those financial institutions, they should not support, they should cut because the military is still weak stage, and then you don't want them to revive and get in stronger and providing a much needed aid and assistance and financial pipeline. But that's the thing that I think we have been focusing on those cronies and those who committed economic crimes, because they are directly linked to the military generals. This is something that EWC, also New York Times, other publications have also been, I think, targeting those individuals.
Yeah, they can't have much power without the money and the backing, of course, from what's happening over there. So thank you, Angzo. So, Cape, I want to direct this one to you. It was also, if anyone wants to weigh in after Cape, the international community has actually heard about Anne Rose Nutong, a Catholic nun in Myanmar, who famously pleaded with police and soldiers to stop them from chasing or shooting protesters. Now, have you heard of Buddhist monks, Christian priests, nuns, or other religious clergy who have supported or helped the cause against the Tatmadaw or police?
Yeah, there are many, religious leaders from different religions in the country, helping and assisting people. Let me give you an example. Still, there is the monk strike in Mandalay region. Going in the street in the village, for the strike every day. So it's like even these religious leaders are playing a big role in the resistance, a big role in the in the movement against the coup. So I would say, yeah, not only the one, but also there are a lot. So I personally spoken to the sister Anna Rosa, that even still she's been helping people in Nikjina. She has set up the clinic, giving the free medical treatment to the people, like during the third wave here, COVID here in Burma last August, like her clinics was very helpful, to the people, in the area in Nikjina. So I would say like these religious leaders are very helpful to the people in terms of their social welfare and in a political way. At the same time, there are also many religious leaders who are sided with the military regime. So I mean, from different religions. Even like there are many. So yeah, good thing and bad things. Also, good religious leaders and bad religious leaders everywhere. Thank you so much.
Just a quick follow-up to, well, actually, did anyone else want to weigh in on that particular question about religious?
I think,
yeah.
I think the regime is past and also present. They are, how to call it, they're using the religious as a weapon. Especially this current military regime and the leaders. It's shameless, the way that they use the religious as a tool to promote their political agenda and to legitimize their rule. If you look at the Sidagu Siaro and other key monks who will be active right after the coup, they are kind of collaborators of the May Online regime. And also you can see that maybe you might recall during the Christmas time, May Online want to see, he's self-invited himself, self-invitation to see the Charles Bowl, Cardinal Charles Bowl in so that was, I heard that it was a self-invitation. Before the visit, he they're trying to poke his ego to, say that, okay, I'm coming to come. We want to come and help. We both need the peace to work together for the country. And then he went to see the Cardinal Charles Bowl wearing the military fatigue, military uniform, and then cutting a cake and having a handshake for 5 minutes photo op. The message is very clear. At the time of the visit, the regime jet fighters and helicopters are bombing and attacking the Chin villages, and then churches are being burned down. At the time, he visited Charlesbourg in Yangon and had a photo op, but with a military uniform. The message is clear. You can go out and kill whatever you want to kill. Because I'm meeting a Christian leader, but I'm wearing a military uniform. I just want to share my thought.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. We only have a couple more minutes. So what I want to do is take this last couple minutes to go around, and I want you to share maybe your thoughts of where we go from here. How can we maybe increase coverage, continue this conversation? Obviously, the Russian invasion has dominated our international coverage, our news, even here at my own station. It's about that. It's kind of hard to get Myanmar on the radar of some of our news outlets outside of Myanmar. So let's go around and then just kind of your hopes and what you would like to see come out, more than a year after the coup. Mimi, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, like I said, Myanmar is in the Indo-Pacific region. It's at the foot of China, right? So we need to find a way to get that story out, to understand that Myanmar is in the front line of democracy. If Myanmar does not retain its democracy, it will send a huge message in the Indo-Pacific region. And so it will have a strategic impact in this theater. So I know that people are focused on Ukraine, and they should, but also Myanmar is as important in our Indo-Pacific region.
Thank you, Annalisa. I have three short points to say. One is the media, the independent media, and the journalists will surely continue their work. I'm very sure. Please be sure about that. They will do in whatever circumstances and situation, they will do their work. But they need support, particularly financial support, to do their work. So I would like to request international community who cherish freedom of expression and media freedom to financially support these media outlets and journalists, particularly the region-based ethnic media outlets who are struggling with inadequate financial support. This is one. Second one is we also would like to seek technical support. Myanmar is not alone in this context. I would say that there is a kind of threats like Myanmar, Russia, and China, and they work together in repressing the people, and they are working together in suppressing the freedom, the freedom of expression. So we need the technical support. Now they shut down the internet access, and we need equipment like satellite. I wish there is a satellite internet service for Myanmar, dedicated for Myanmar, so the people can use internet access despite even if the military regime shut it down. So lastly, I would also say, please continue to highlight the Myanmar situation in the international media or regional media. Of course, they will do their work, and the Burmese people will continue their work. They will continue to struggle for their freedom. But by highlighting Myanmar's struggle in international media and regional media, I think it is a way of encouraging and supporting for the movement to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Cape.
Yeah, I would like to follow up Kosomye, note that international community should support the local journalists in terms of financial and also like technical, because I have friends who have been away from their homes. They're not staying at their place with the families. So such kind of people. So they will need some financial support from the organization or from the people, for their relocation and stuff, because their home can be raided anytime, or some of my friends, my colleagues are facing that, the military came and searched their house, such kind of stuff. So they are struggling, and yeah, of course, also, they will need some moral support. Of course, they already have some moral support, but yeah, to stay strong, they would need moral support. And yeah, for me personally, I would like to see, and I would like to get reunion with my friends and my colleagues, one day in Yangon or one day in Myanmar. We'll have a tea, at the roadside tea shop, and then we'll continue to the beer station. So yeah, that's my
And I hope you
note.
can
Thank you so
invite me
much.
too to that, Cape. I
Sure.
hope to join you at one point at that point too. I'll do a story about that, hopefully.
All right.
Final
will.
thoughts, Angzo.
Right, I would like to second to Go Somjin and Kate on that support is needed, and we have two major operation, emergency operation, safe relocation. Without the support, we couldn't move around people. They will be caught immediately, which is important. Last year and this year, they happened. So thanks to anyone whoever is supporting us, and I think independent media, the people, our team, I'm sure the other people's, the journalists are very determined to continue. And I also would like to say that maybe Wimber made a fantastic presentation on the need for three key points: the people support, the international pressure, and also defection. And when we talk about international pressure, we are known in Ukraine, and I'm sure that when things are really cool down in Ukraine theater or in Europe, then the attention will be shifted to Myanmar. But meanwhile, we have to keep, providing fact-based information analysis to the people and inside and outside, which is very important for us to do it, because of there are a lot of similarities between Ukraine and Myanmar. Putin has miscalculated, and Myanmar also likewise miscalculated. But also, if you ask me about international support, not very inspiring in terms of Myanmar. There's a very lukewarm and sluggish support, the action from the Western governments, including the US, where I think the messaging is missing. I keep telling the diplomats and friends that you need a message, you need a consistent message to send a message to both Burmese people, oppressed Burmese people, as well as to the regime that, like we had a great old days with the, both administration, either Democrat or Republican, that they have a consistent message around 2008, 2009. I miss these old days. So we need a message from our friends and our partners. And we need to tighten the economic and financial sanction against those cronies that I mentioned, these armed cronies. They are the ones who prop up the regime, and then you got to hit them hard. That's lastly is, they will never win. They're gonna win. They will never win. The regime will not win. Even in the media sector, they are losing because we are working hard. And they are losing. This is the good news that I want to share. And that's why they're desperate. They're recruiting their proxy media, and they're trying to get the people to echo whatever they're trying to say. But they are losing within a year or two. Now they are losing. They are going to lose more because of the independent media and those working hard. And lastly, there are two countries that we don't mention. One is elephant in the room, China. The other one is the US. I think the US and China is going to shape the Burma future policy. I think these two countries are important because China doesn't want Burma issue to be internationalized. At the same time, the US is putting more pressure, and the Burma issue is much more prominent at the international arena. So this is something that we have to also look at this dynamic and looking into. Hopefully, bring more the positive news into our country. It has been Burmese people deserve more attention, I think. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again to all of you for sharing your insight. It's such an important topic, and thank you for letting me be able to join this conversation. And with that, let's pass it back to Susan with the East West Center.
Thank you, Annalisa, and thank you so much to Somyan, Cape Diamond, Ongzo, Dr. Mimi Winbird for joining us today on our topic that continues to hold so much continued international and concern and support. To the Myanmar journalists, you hold my highest, and I'm sure from the audience, our highest respect and gratitude and admiration for your challenging, dangerous jobs in keeping the people of your country and the world informed. It's inspirational to hear that the media is growing, that you are reporting more now than you ever have done before, and also to hear that the military dictatorship is not going to win. I mean, you're leaving our audience with some very inspirational and hopeful words. So thank you all again. Thank you, Dr. Bird. You're always for your thoughtful, valuable, informed perspectives, and to our journalists, and also to the diaspora around the world for their support to the people of Myanmar. So to our audience, thank you for tuning in to today's EWC Seminars Live. We hope you'll join us next time. Check our website, www.eastwestcenter.org/EWC Seminars Live for information, and we'll be also sending out announcements. So finally, to everyone, mahalo and aloha